So we have that official recording started. So people can join. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So last time I forgot to introduce myself Happy Hour gift because I got that gift and like I was literally crying. And then last Wednesday I forgot to introduce that. So I was like, no, I can't wait. And also, I'm not sure what you are drinking, but my drink for today is actually La Radler. But yeah, I don't want to mention name because like they are not sponsoring us. So welcome today. Welcome to SEO Happy Hour. I'm so happy that today Naomi is going to talk about her story, about her SEO journey. So welcome. We will leave some questions for the end. And then we can start. My name is Adriana Vujadin. I am SEO manager and coach for SEO professionals. Also, as you can see, I am founder of SEO Happy Hour, where I really want to talk about some stories and topics that nobody is talking, and that is actually our thoughts, our feelings, how we are growing our SEO career, but from the mindset level, from the level that we are experiencing every day, not from that kind of technical things. So we are not going to talk about any SEO technical things. I know you are overwhelmed by all these updates. So this is the only hour where you will not hear anything about technical. So Naomi, thank you so much for joining the call. I loved your story, and I'm really happy that other people will also hear your story and your SEO challenges, where they can learn so much from you. So floor is yours.
Hello, hi everyone. So I'm well, first of all, thank you for having me on SEO Happy. I'm very excited. So I'm Naomi FrancisParker. I currently work for the Evergreen agency based in the UK, and I'm the head of SEO. And I've been there for 4.5 years, and I'm just very excited to discuss my story and how I got here and some of the ups and downs, especially being a woman in SEO, because when I first started, I didn't necessarily think that would be a thing, but it definitely is. So yeah, so I started, when I first started at the Evergreen agency, I had very little experience in SEO. I just wanted to get into digital marketing, and I came on as a junior, and at Evergreen we're really big on training from within. So my boss, it was literally just him and me at the time. I'm employee number 1. I still am number 1, which is quite cool to see. And yeah, he just taught me everything I needed to know. And I started off classic doing link building, as most people do, and then progressed into content. And then over time, as we got more clients and we got more people in the team, we had our own clients that we'd look after, and we'd do everything for those clients. And then now, many years later, we're a much bigger team, and so we have a content department, promotion department, and then I oversee all of the strategic side of the organic part of the agency. And through that journey, I've enjoyed every moment of it, but I definitely did quite early on come across people who might not have been overly joyed having someone quite young but also a woman telling them how to optimize their website, basically. And even some colleagues at the time who were male colleagues, and we started off kind of as peers, and then as I got promoted, I quite quickly realized that not everyone is happy to have a woman as a manager, and especially not someone who came in at the same level as them. So I just dealing with that. And at first I was like, oh, it's probably fine. But then comments and going into meetings and having some clients really clearly favor male counterparts' opinions over my opinion, even though the opinion's the same opinion. And physically ignoring me, all of that kind of stuff. How I overcame that was, well,
wait. How do you mean physically ignored? How
so we had a client, we don't have him as a client anymore, just to make that super clear. We were in a meeting, and it was just to talk about, I think it was just to talk about their campaign, or just a standard meeting. And there was me, and then there was my old boss, and he So they asked my opinion on something and I gave my opinion and recommended something that I know to be correct. And they literally like looked at me and then went, okay, but what do you think, to my boss? And then he gave the exact same answer, like, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll do that. Thank you for that. And like completely disregarded anything that I had to say, even though it was the same. And I think that was the first time I was like, wow, okay, that's fine, I suppose. I'm not quite
And
sure how
what
to do it.
else? What else you were thinking at that moment?
And I was just, I don't really know. At first, I kind of questioned if that had happened, and at the time, I think I'd only been there like a year. So I thought, well, maybe because they don't think I'm experienced enough, or maybe my opinion was wrong. And kind of just, it was a bit conflicting because on the one hand, I was happy that they liked the suggestion. So it kind of confirmed to me that I was correct. But on the other hand, I was like, how do we deal with this going forward? Because it kind of made me question everything. So every email that I sent to them beyond that was like, do I need to copy my boss in to like almost validate what I'm saying to them? Or do I need to, it's almost overworking to validate something that on the surface is quite basic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
So,
basically you needed to prove like
yeah,
yourself, to work more, to do all these like additional things just to kind of like,
just to do
yeah,
my job,
I'm the same.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily though, I'm very lucky that my boss and also the guy who owns the company, who's also my boss, is very supportive, and he doesn't stand for any of that. So as soon as that happened, he was like, absolutely not. And like phoned them up and was just like, no, Naomi is in charge of your account, and like I believe in what she's saying. And basically in a professional way, I was like, don't do that. We don't deal with that very well. But even still, even with all that support, and while that is fantastic, and I know that many people don't have the privilege, well, it's not even a privilege, it should be basic, but don't have the bosses who support them in that way, it still does a lot to your confidence internally. So I'd only been working at SEO for a year and I was very aware of that. And even though I had the support of, yes, what I'm doing is correct, that kind of stayed with me almost, not so much to this day, but there's always that like feeling in the back of your mind. So every client that we had that was like a male, I'd before they'd even say anything, I'd be like over explaining to make sure that they don't feel as though they have to like go above me to like validate what I'm saying. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and doesn't matter like if they are ignoring us for any kind of like discrimination, like doesn't matter, but it's interesting to see that our brain is going to the first station. Oh, I need to work more, I need to overwork, I need to prove myself, I need to check. In that situation, our brain is not going in the direction, I don't care, like if they don't want to I don't know, ask or like communicate with us, like I'm fine where I am, like here. But no, like that's interesting, because in every situation brain will find negative pattern. So that's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. That was probably my first experience of that. And then yeah, I've had male counterparts who I mentioned before. I actually go to my manager and basically just say, I don't like Naomi managing me, and I don't really agree with what they're suggesting, even though I knew that what I was suggesting was correct. But I was basically told that, well, because my manager, who's a man, has been working in it longer, granted, but is also a man, he just feels more comfortable that he's his manager and doesn't, he outwardly said he just has a problem with like female authority, and like as if that was fine. And I was like, well, I just want to do my job. Like I don't care about being authoritative or anything like that. I just want to do a good job. So that's not really my problem. It's not really my problem.
Yeah,
You've got a problem
that's
with
his
it.
problem.
Yeah, but I've only come to that realization in the past like year and a half. Before that, it really did affect me, because he was also the first person I ever managed. So in my head, before I realized it was just because he's got an issue with women, I just thought it was my managing style, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. And then that stays with you. So again, the same situation like in the meeting, you're constantly second guessing everything, every email that you send, or every time I would like review a piece of his work and say, oh, could you tweak this? I'd be trying to word it in such a friendly way so that he wouldn't feel like almost attacked. But then the other manager, who was a man, would do the same thing. He'd be like, oh, thanks, mate. But if I did, like, oh, I don't agree with that. Why are we doing this? And it was all that kind of conflict that, without me realizing, like seeped into everything else that I did. He doesn't work here anymore, just to make that clear. But it didn't, and it was only once he left that I realized how much that had happened, because I now have a lovely team who are happy to have me as their manager. And it was so much easier. And then I realized, like, oh, this is actually what it's meant to be like. It's not meant to be constant battles. And if I suggest something and it's incorrect, or there's a differing opinion, I'm more than happy to take that. I'm not like, no, this is the only way. But if you're just arguing because you don't like that I'm a girl, then you need to sort yourself out and look inside yourself, because I'm overthinking to make sure you feel okay, but you're not doing the other way around, because you've never had to experience that kind of conflict. Does that make sense?
And especially it's great that you had actually the additional support, because what I'm seeing is actually the biggest problem is when people are in like the same situation. And again, doesn't matter for which reason they have been ignored by one of the team member. Usually, like SEO, I don't know, is it just like for SEO professionals, like, or all other people are just, they are being in themselves, like they are not communicating externally. They are just thinking that like something is wrong with them, that is not happening. Maybe they see the situation differently, and like they are not communicating to others. But that's the key. Like, doesn't matter for which reason you have been ignored in your company, you really need to communicate, because there is someone else in your team that will help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm very open with my manager now, but at the time, because I was quite young and I hadn't been doing the job for long, I automatically, like you just said, I automatically thought this is a me problem. And instead of like vocalizing it, I was like, I need to find a solution to this, because I'm obviously doing something wrong. I'm pretty sure I even like Googled like how to deal with male counterparts who aren't happy to have women as a manager, or something like that, and like trying to implement these steps. And all this time, it actually wasn't anything that I was doing wrong. And then eventually, when I did vocalize it to my manager and my team, he was like, no, that's not correct. Like, you've not done anything wrong. This person just obviously has an issue with like female authority and has admitted to such, but then apparently thinks that's okay. And that took, I think, maybe like a year for me to feel comfortable enough to vocalize that. And then once I did, and once people support you, it makes such a difference. You literally feel like the weight come off your shoulders of, oh, like, thank God somebody else is actually seeing it for what it is, and it's not just me being like a terrible manager or overthinking it. So yeah, everyone should vocalize it, and it can be hard. I understand that. I'm very lucky to have support, and I have worked in companies where that's not the case, so it's very difficult and very different if that's not the case. But even if it's not like a manager or someone senior that you can talk to, even just someone in your team, just like almost if you do a piece of work and you want a second pair of eyes, it's like that. It's like, is this okay? Like, what do you think? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, no, you're completely correct. And just that confirmation almost.
Yeah, but that's it's confirmation that makes you feel good. And then you are, the all work that you're like, all hours that you have put into your work, like you're just ignoring them. But if that confirmation is coming from others, then you are good. So we really need to learn like how to get that confirmation from because it can be a case, for example, that your team member or manager is saying different to you, like even you know that something you need to do and it's proper way. For any kind of reasons, they can say like, no, that you are doing it wrong. And then we have a huge conflict if you are not okay that you did a decent job.
Yeah, definitely. And I was really encouraged to like air my opinions if I believe that they're correct, especially with like work. Like it took me a really long, I'm at a point now, thankfully, considering my job, I'm at a point now where I'm very confident that like I can do my job well. And I do feel as well that in the world in general, but I think especially as women, I'm definitely guilty of this. I'm guilty of it to this day. We have a real problem with like backing ourselves and saying, yeah, like this is a good, like I know this is correct. Like I do the strategies for our clients and they're big clients. And I can't go in and be like, I think this is right. Can you spend this money? And then like maybe you'll like grow. That you can't do that. So, but it's almost for a while, it was like a front of I'm confident in this, it's been signed off, and then put on the projection of like, I'm really confident to a client, because obviously you would never just say, oh, it might not work, or I'm not sure. But then internally, I'd be thinking, oh, what if I back myself and then they turn around and go like, absolutely not. Do you know what I mean? So really learning to be like, actually, yeah, like I'm actually good at my job and that's okay. And sometimes you're not going to get that from other people, unfortunately. So it's difficult. It's so hard to be like, no, like I'm good at my job. And what I'm suggesting is the right thing to suggest. And it feels really uncomfortable. Even like saying it now, I'm thinking, God, I hope these people don't think I'm really arrogant. But the more you do it and the more that you practice it, the easier it will become. And then that just seeps into everything then. So if you do have someone who challenges you, and not that challenges are bad, obviously there are certain things where there are nuances to it. But if you think, no, I know for a fact that this is going to help XYZ because I've proven it or I've done it before, whatever the case may be, if you just back yourself and someone else comes to you and argues against it, sometimes you'll find that they might just be arguing to make sure that you're sure in what you're saying. And that's something that I learned as well. And then as soon as I've like not fought back, that's the wrong word, but come back and said, no, I guarantee, like I'm sure that this is the right thing because of XYZ, they go, okay. And when that happens, you're like, oh, okay, I can do it. I've like done a good job. But it's so difficult. It's a constant like conflict in your brain to just to do your job, which is just exhausting because we just want to go in, do our work, have a good time, want to make sure our clients or the business that we work for, whatever it is, get good results, and then go home. But we're constantly trying to do like 5 other jobs because we're trying to like convince people that we're doing the right thing or convince ourselves that we're doing the right thing. And it's just tiring.
Yeah. And do you know why is that?
Well, it's because you're essentially doing mental gymnastics, really. You're trying to anticipate like 5 different responses to 5 different things when, for example, you could just present some keyword research, just like basic keyword research, here are your keywords. But then you're presenting it and you're not just thinking about the keywords and like the physical task, you're thinking about, oh, well, are they going to be thinking that I haven't spent long enough doing it? Or are they going to be microanalyzing this? Or, if you're a woman and you're presenting it to maybe a business owner who might be a man and a bit more, like traditional corporate, maybe doesn't really have time for you, you're thinking, how can I present this in a way that's going to convince him that it's the right thing to do? And then all you're doing is presenting keywords. That's literally what you're doing. That's all you want to do.
And then you're spending more time on like all these negative thoughts than just on actual task. And I will tell you why. Because from the history, the women are determined their value by the amount of work they have done on daily basis. So if you are not doing like anything not anything, but if you're not productive, you are feeling, oh yeah, I'm not productive, but you're feeling guilty. And you think that you are not worthy because it's just your day and like you're not able to like be productive. And like it's this is so like crazy because all these like SEO industries are encouraging like being productive, overworking, hustling, working on weekends, being updated with all these Google updates, because like just in that way you are SEO professional, but you are not. You are actually better SEO professional if you are like saying, okay, today is not my day. Like I have bad days as we always, and I can't be productive, but I'm okay, like I'm good enough for today. Tomorrow I will be like much more efficient, much more productive. But the issue is here that women are determined their value by the amount of work they do. So if they didn't have time to finish like all these tasks, they're feeling bad. And then again and again. And this is just like the pattern that we are doing every day.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's the toxic productivity, I think it's called. I was watching something talking about something very similar, and it's so true. Like everyone has a day where, you know, those days where you go in and for some reason, like even writing an email, you're like, God, why can't I write this email? I'm just writing an email. It's just so much effort. And there's no reason for it. And it's just an off day. But then ironically, on those days, you put more pressure on yourself because you know you're having an off day, and then it's like a perpetuating cycle. And then typically you're not going to get as much done because you're just having a bad day. And then the next day you come in and you think, well, now I need to make up for the fact I had an off day yesterday. And then it's just constant. And the only time you have a break is when you go on a holiday. But then on holiday, you're like, oh, how many emails are going to come back to? And it's just a perpetuating cycle. But one thing that I've learned, this is probably controversial, but I tell my team this all the time. Obviously, we want to do a good job, but we're not like brain surgeons. We're just doing marketing. It's important, but like no one's going to die if we don't send that email. At 4:45, if you send an email, is the client going to read it? Probably not. Just do it tomorrow. And I'm hypocritical because it took me a long time to learn that. But then I think when I became more responsible and had a team of my own, I would notice some of the same like traits. And so it was really when I started to manage people that I learned to almost like practice what I preach, because I'd be like, oh, we're not saving lives, guys, but then I'd work really late to do the same thing. And so I thought, okay, I need to lead by example. Also, my boss is really good at being like, you need to literally go home now. But yeah, like we're just doing marketing. Like it's fine. It's important, but it's also fine. Like no one's gonna die. I'm going on holiday next week, and in my head, classic, I've got about 5 days worth of work to do in like a day, as we always do before going on holiday. But I have to look at my list, and I know for a fact there are probably half the things on that list that can wait till I'm back. They're not like priorities, but exactly how you've just said, in my head, I'm not going to do any work for a week. So somehow I need to cram all that in, but it's just not realistic.
Yeah. If you don't finish everything, you didn't deserve that holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll be on holiday and like, oh, I didn't do those 5 tasks.
Yeah, because we need to deserve holidays. Like,
yeah. But actually, no, holidays are like a basic right that you have to get by law. And so like it's fine. Like I'm not advocating not doing any work. Obviously do work, but sometimes you just have to take a step back and think, is this like crucial? Do your mission critical things, but there are so many things that we think are mission critical. And then we get back and we're like, oh, I'll just do it now. And it takes like 10 minutes and it's done. But there's so much stress and so much around it because we feel like our worth is determined by like the amount of work that we do. But you know, we're like
but
human
who
beings.
put that pressure on you?
Pardon, sorry?
Who put that pressure on you?
Myself most of the time. And obviously there are cases, and I've worked in places where it is your company or boss or whoever you work for, but in reality it's just me in my own head.
Yeah.
Basically. And it's funny because I know for a fact that my team are going to watch this and be like, well, you don't abide by these rules. But it's a process. It's not as easy to just do it overnight, because I feel like we're intrinsically trained from such a young age, like not subconsciously, to like your value is your work, and especially when you get into the working world. And so it's weird that I'm like 30 and only just realizing this. Like it's mad, because even when you go to school, it's like if your output isn't X, you're not worthy of Y. So I think it's like a retraining of the brain to basic, like we're human beings. It's okay. We can enjoy our job, but we can also have time off.
I love this. I love this because usually SEO professionals are just talking about how they're busy, their schedule are, how they are learning like new things, about new updates, sharing like the old knowledge that they have learned like over the nights and weekends. And then people who are actually talking like this, you are feeling that you are promoting like non-work. No, you are promoting just like life, and that should be like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. I'm saying all this, and in my head, I think, I hope people don't think I just don't do anything all day, because I definitely do. But you don't have to justify it.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I'd like to think I wouldn't have the job that I have if I didn't do any work, but it's fine to do the work within your work hours. And I'm a big advocate for, self-development and personal development. And yes, we obviously have to keep ahead of the game, because SEO just changes like that. But just because someone else has read, like, you see these, when you see these like LinkedIn posts or these videos, it's like, I read 5 books a day to progress my career to XYZ. And if you want to be the most successful, you have to do 10 courses in like 10 hours. It's just not, A, they're probably lying, and B, it just makes everyone else feel rubbish, because it's like, well, I'm not doing that, so I must be rubbish at my job. No, that's not the case. People are different.
Yeah. And especially like when it comes to even like work-life balance, like that is like totally disorder there, because people don't know like even what is work-life balance. Is not just like work-life, it should be like life-work, because I'm not living to work, I'm working so I can live in the way I want.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a big thing, because work-life balance, well, it depends who you speak to, but for me, work-life balance is, I love my job and I absolutely love it. And I enjoy going to work every day and I enjoy the time that I'm there. But I also enjoy just not thinking about it at the weekend. And we all have those times, of course, if something happens, we have those times where you have to maybe work a bit extra, or you might have to jump on at the weekend if like absolute like travesty happens. But again, 9 times out of 10, it's okay, because people aren't dying because we're not like optimizing the websites for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be fine on Monday.
Yeah, but yeah, I totally agree, and I'm listening to you. But how to explain to people who are actually in that survival mode, who are just like working, overworking, putting tasks, just like overworking nights, weekends, like how to explain them that like actually, firstly, that is not good even from the management perspective, because like if you are growing, you will see like, firstly, you need to make a prioritization in your task, then delegation. Like you're not going to become head of SEO if you're just like working every day by 12 hours. It's not actually the way how you should grow. And if you are working every day like to 10 hours, something is wrong with you and with your job, because you will not reach the next SEO level, but just like working like that. But people are having like the totally opposite thinking, that just if they are working 10 hours per day, they will have like bigger salary, bigger title, better jobs. But it's like completely opposite. How would you explain that to other like people who are in the same situation now?
I think the word that you just said that I think sticks with me the most is delegation. So I used to be absolutely awful at delegating, because I started working at Evergreen where I'm right now, and at the time it was just me and my boss Aaron, who was lovely and has supported me all the way and has basically taught me everything I know. There was a time, obviously, when you're with a growing like startup as well, there are times where you do kind of have to do everything. But then as we've grown and we've got departments now, there are things that I don't need to do. But it was quite difficult for me at the beginning to like, because I've been doing it for so long, to like let go of that responsibility. And I'd be awful at delegating. And so there have been a few times where Aaron he'd basically say to me, like, why, like, you're really busy, but then like these people are like not that busy, like that doesn't work, because as you were just saying, the as you progress, it's not meant to be like that. You're meant to have more like, we call it like thinking time. I do strategy, so I have to have a lot of time to just think about what to do. And you can't think when you're doing. You think you can, this is going to sound weird, you can think, but when you're constantly doing and you're thinking about the task, you're not thinking about the bigger picture. And so the art of delegation is so key. And when I first started to delegate work, because I have a very capable team and they can do it and they would do it really well, and I started to have more time to think about strategy, and then how we're going to grow X client or whatever it might be, or how we're going to solve this problem, it was like a breath of fresh air, but for my brain, because I'd be like, oh, I'd come up with a solution. And the only reason I could come up with that solution was because I wasn't focusing on doing a task. And I think people think it's mutually exclusive. You have to constantly do in order to think. This sounds like a riddle now, but you know what I'm trying to say. You feel like you have to
Yeah.
do in order to think, but that's not the case. You need headspace. It's why you have to go on holidays and why you have like lunch breaks and why you go home and then you come back the next day, because your brain can't be doing all these things and have it can't grow effectively in terms of the knowledge that you're going to gain.
Yeah, because definitely you all experienced the moment, for example, when you are working something and you can't figure it out. And then you're just taking a small break for lunch, for walk, to do something differently. And then when you rejoin the work, then you got an idea. Because if you are just like making the space in your head, just like to have some time to clearly think, you will be like more efficient, better, like more creative worker. So, and then like all your work will be just like faster because you are thinking with your like clear mind. But if you are just working, you are just repeating like the tasks, the all these things, like you are just kind of like, I don't know, worker, just like regular worker. Like you are not thinker, you are not decision maker, you are not, you can't grow to the management level because
Yeah.
like you're just stuck here. So everything that you see is just like your tasks.
Yeah, and it's like, I think of it as like, I don't know, it's like clutter for your brain. The tasks are important because the tasks need to be done, but also it's how you solidify how to do a task, depending on what level you are and what you're doing. But then in order to really progress and get a clear sense of, okay, what's the long-term strategy, or am I going to come up with this idea? You need space for your ideas. I think this is going to be a weird analogy. I think of it as like, I don't know, say you've got a bedroom floor and you want to put a piece of paper down on the floor so you can come up with some creative ideas. It's a strange analogy, but it's fine. You can't, if you think of the doing, for an example, as you just throwing more stuff on the floor, you keep throwing and throwing and throwing. You're not going to have a clear space to put your piece of paper down to get your ideas. Whereas if you take a break to clean the floor and, okay, get your to-do list done, but then maybe after, like, spend the weekend having time to yourself and not thinking about work and just almost completely forgetting about work. When you come back, it's a fresh, clean floor. You put the larger piece of paper down because you've completely cleared out everything. And you can come up with so many ideas. I guarantee I'm going to come back from my holiday next week and I'll have so many more ideas for the rest of the quarter than I would have done if I just stayed at work, because it's just the way the brain works. That analogy didn't make a great deal of sense, but I think
we got your point. Yeah. And I like when you say like forgot the work, but it's very hard to find like the way how you can forget your work. So what kind of activities you're practicing?
I like to, it is hard. What I do is I'm quite like regimented with my to-do list. I love a good to-do list, because for me, if I don't see it as in physically written down or on a screen or whatever it is, I either worry that I'm going to forget to do something, or I stress that I haven't added it to my to-do list, and so I'm already thinking about adding it to my to-do list when I'm trying to do something else, and it's all just clutter for the brain. So what I like to do it every Friday, but then before I go on holiday, I get what I can get done on my to-do list, but then I find physically writing, I'm quite old school, I like to physically write down stuff, and the act of physically writing down my tasks and the dates of when I'm going to do it after my break, I don't know, it's like it's physically getting it out of my brain onto a piece of paper. I don't need to worry that I'm going to forget to do something because I know it's there. And so I can go into a weekend or a holiday or an evening knowing if it does pop into my brain, because we're all human, it will happen. You can just think, it's all right, I've written it down. I'll see it tomorrow, or I'll see it next week. And for me personally, that really works. If I go into a weekend or if I go on holiday without having my to-do list of things I need to do when I get back, some might think it's counterproductive because you're already thinking about work when you're back. But for me, it like sweeps out my brain. I know it's there. when I come back. And so I can go into my weekend holiday break almost just worry free. And then if it does pop in, it's cool, it's on my to-do list. Like, move on, think about something else. And also, this is really cliche, but just getting outside for a walk sometimes and just putting on a podcast or some music and just focusing on that rather than going on a walk to then think about work really helps. Even if it's like 5-10 minutes, sometimes I find it just kind of dusts off the cobwebs, especially if you're feeling really pressured or overwhelmed.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter, like, is it any kind of sport activity, walking, podcast, doesn't matter. If you are actually practicing and you are training your brain to not think about work when you are not at the work, actually it will work. But if you're just, I don't know, laying in your bed, watching the Netflix, and you're thinking about tasks that you have to finish like tomorrow, then you really need to like stop. Okay, I will do this task like tomorrow, but let's watch Netflix. And then after 5 minutes, like similar thought will come up, but you just like kind of doing an internal conversation with you, because all these internal conversations with yourself, like, okay, let's not think about this today, I will think about it like tomorrow, is actually a practice for your brain. And then like brain will be just like, oh, I'm so bored, like I can't do anything, like here's, and like then you're going to watch Netflix just like easily, or any other activities. So you really need to practice by small steps to not think about your work on Saturdays, on Sundays, and then it will be like your habit not thinking about your work when you are outside or when you are watching the Netflix, or doesn't matter.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a brain training exercise, because I only say this now because I've learned what works for me in terms of, I know that if I write something down, then that's going to be out of my brain. But also then when it does pop in, because these thoughts like to come in, it's almost like reassuring myself. I know I've written it down, so I know I don't need to worry about it now. And it's taken a long time, and it still happens now. I'll probably be walking in the Lake District next week, and then something about work will pop into my brain. Luckily, I won't have any signals, won't be able to do anything about it. But it's a constant practice. It's kind of like, it's like training for like a marathon or something. You have to keep doing it in order for it to become a habit. But then even when it's a habit, you have to occasionally check in with yourself and remind yourself that you don't need to worry about it, or what's your coping mechanism to stop that from happening. For me, I have to write it down. Or we all do marketing, so we're very creative. Sometimes ideas come when you least expect it, and you can push it out of your brain. But for me, if I know it's a good idea, I know if I push out my brain and don't write it down, I'm going to forget about it. And then I'll come in on Monday and be like, what was that idea? So we use Slack where I work, and you can send yourself a Slack message, and then you can remind yourself like the next week. I do this all the time. So I Slack myself. My Slack messages to myself are just ideas and random things. And then I set a reminder to remind me when I'm at work. And that's my way of, okay, I do need to think about it a bit because I don't want to forget this idea, but I don't need to think about it now. So I'm going to write the idea out, send it to myself. When I come in on Monday at 9 a.m., I'll get a little Slack message from me to me with my idea. But then for the rest of that weekend, I wasn't thinking about it because I've like dealt with it. Does that make sense? Without having to actually action the task and go into work mode. It's just a quick, oh, write that down, send it away.
Yeah, I love this. I love this because our brain, like, he's just like giving us like all these thoughts and ideas to think about it. But if we take that thought, for example, we put that in the phone notes or like any paper, or like send the reminders. Okay, we took that thought and like that's it, we finished. So our brain is not going to serve like, hey, let's think about this idea again.
Yeah, it's like compartmentalizing, because I completely agree that, especially in this day and age, and it does depend on what your job is, but if you're creative or do marketing, basically anything like that, it isn't realistic to forget about it, because I've forgotten so many ideas that I knew were good at the time because I was like, oh, just don't think about it, but then I didn't write them down. So you do have to find what works for you. But over time, I found that it's like just putting it in a filing cabinet and putting it away till Monday. It's like a physical cleanse for your brain. So you're like, yeah, cool, thanks for reminding me. I've sorted that. Now let's get back to what we were doing.
I love it. I love it. That's great advice, actually.
Hope so.
All
I
right.
hope that works. I hope that makes sense to people.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And since we have like more time, and I really want to you like give you some time if you want to highlight something from your career, any SEO specific challenge that you would like to discuss now, and then we can leave some questions for the people who are here.
Yeah, so any SEO challenges? I mean, there have been lots, but I really think that for the purpose of this, and actually just the biggest thing I've learned in my career is not, and well, no, I'm not going to say that. I was about to say, I know my career is not long, so I've been in it for 5 years, but I'm saying that because I'm thinking I have to justify it, so I don't. So I'm not going to say that. So in my career, over the 5 years, I actually think the biggest thing I've learned has actually got nothing to do with SEO. It's all the things we've spoken about today, because it's so empowering to come up with, for my example, like a strategy or something that you know is going to work, and to present that to a client, but also to your team, and be like, this is going to work, guys. I know this is going to work. But they're not just saying it, actually believing it and thinking, do you know what? I'm good at my job. I've done a good job. And that's fine. That's it. There's no but. There's no, oh, but then if we done, there's none of that. It's just, this was a good idea. We executed it well. We got good results. And that was an idea that I had. And it's fine to back yourself, because I feel like the world is weird, isn't it? It's like, oh, everyone should be self-confident, but don't be too self-confident, because then you're going to come across as arrogant. So find this weird middle ground where you're a bit self-confident, but then add like a self-deprecating joke to make it seem like you're less confident. And I do have to say that I feel like this affects women more than men, because men will just say, yeah, that's a good idea. That's it. And everyone's like, oh, well done, great. But if a woman does it, they're like, oh, she's a bit aggressive. Oh, she's a bit brash. No, your ideas are good ideas, full stop. That's it. Nothing else. So my biggest lesson is to back myself more. And I'm still doing it to this day, because in my brain, I'm like, feel like I have to add a but you don't need to add a but. And also that we're not saving lives. That's my biggest thing. And I'm sure that some like people who kind of like the toxic productivity will say, oh yeah, but you know, you should treat your job as if it's like the be all end all. It's not the be all and end all. It's just, you can enjoy it, but at the end of the day, we do it because we like to get paid, to be completely frank, but also you might as well get paid for something you enjoy. And unless you are a surgeon where people are actually, you know, relying on you to save their lives, you not sending that email like 4:45 on a Friday is probably going to be okay. Sometimes it might not be, but 9 times out of 10, it will be. So back yourself, and you're not saving lives. You're just doing SEO. Probably going to get loads of hate for that, but
No, no, actually, that is why I'm doing like these SEO happy hours. Like, I'm so sad to see that actually SEO professionals don't have that belief that they can work their job, get good salaries, work like decent any kind of like SEO tasks, and actually enjoy the SEO position they are. So basically, you don't need to work and be stressful all day. So there is a possibility to just like work without stress. And like you are not better SEO professionals if you are stressing yourself every day by like 8 hours. Like no, and you are not better SEO professionals if you are overworking. No,
yeah,
you are just like
sorry, no, I was gonna say that's so true. Like, it doesn't make you better because you're stressed all the time. I don't want to be stressed all the time. I absolutely love my job, and there are stressful times, but am I stressed all the time? No, because if I was, I wouldn't love my job. You're not. No one is better than anyone else because, oh, well, I had a good day today because I was stressed and I didn't take my lunch break. That's not anything to like, that's not a flex. That's not, you shouldn't be proud of that. You can work hard, but working hard and enjoying what you do is very different to working hard to fulfill some made up like agenda in your brain because you want everyone else to think that you're better than them. That shouldn't be the world that we live in. You can love your job, you can like your salary, but you can have your weekends, and that's like the goal.
yeah,
That's my goal anyway.
yeah, mine as well. But especially with women, like they are thinking that they need to suffer to get their like salaries, to be a good SEO professionals, to work hard, but actually you can just like work, not hard, not suffer, and just like be totally okay. And then even like grow your SEO career, because like if you are in the suffering every day, definitely you will not become head of SEO because
No,
like you can just like destroy your mental health, and like you are not going anywhere then.
Yeah, I couldn't do my job like just the work alone, but let alone like support a team and help. I have people that have just started their SEO careers working in my team. I wouldn't be able to foster their growth and make sure that they're learning everything they can learn whilst making sure they're okay if I was like firefighting constantly. It wouldn't be possible. Also, I want to lead by example. It's not, I can't say like, oh, you shouldn't do XYZ, and then I go back to my desk and they see me like manically trying to get my job done. It doesn't work like that, and that's not the situation that I want. It's just not fun, is it? You don't want to go into work thinking, oh God, I've got like 10,000 things to do. That you might have 10,000 things to do, but it's almost just like take a step back and separate it into things you actually do need to do, or is it stuff that your brain is saying you need to do to like justify your holiday? You shouldn't have to justify your holiday. If you're doing a good job, you should just take your holiday because it's the law, and then no one should make you feel like, because I've worked in jobs before, not in SEO but in other companies, where it's like, oh yeah, you can go on holiday, but then that week before you go on holiday, they make you feel like you have to earn that holiday. And that's not, I don't think that's correct. And I would never do that. So when I have catch-ups with my team and when I have catch-ups with my boss, the first question I ask is got nothing to do with work. How are you? And how are you, just not even work-wise, just in life? Because if you're having a bad time or you're just having an off day, I want to know that before we start talking about the work, because the work's important, but it's fine to have an off day. We all have off days. People from like, if you're a junior all the way through to like CEOs and MDs have off days, but instead of trying to hide it and think, oh God, if I tell them I'm having an off day, they're going to tell me off. No, it's fine. Do what you can do. We're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for joining today. I think I love it. I love it, and that like that is the most important. And then definitely others can find the value, and doesn't matter like if you are not in this stage. I haven't been in that stage for the first 2 years of my SEO career. Like I was stressing, I was anxious, like I was doing and having like all these like bad feelings. But doesn't matter. Like you just like take one day and say like something needs to be changed, and just like small steps by small steps. But if you're just continuing in the same way as you did yesterday, as you did like last week, then your future is actually the same. Because if you're not taking like anything like differently, then you're actually the next month and next day will be the same as yesterday. So I think like all of us have been in some stressful situations, in the toxic relationships, in the like bad SEO jobs, but there is a one day when you are taking actually responsibility to say like, hey, something needs to be changed, and like let's work these little steps.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about growth. You need to make room to grow. You can't just keep doing the same thing and expect to grow and think, oh, one day I'll have time to, take that break, or because that one day is never going to come. You need to just like force yourself to do it, all within reason, of course. But most of the time, like you can take your hour lunch, it's fine. You might not, if you're in a company where you're a really small company, or there's like a really busy time like Christmas, for example, everyone's busy at Christmas, so yeah, maybe some days you might not have a full hour lunch, but it's about balance. If you're balancing it out and making a point to be like, okay, today I'm really, really busy, I'm probably not going to be able to take lunch, but tomorrow I'm going to make sure I take my 4 hour lunch. It's things like that. It's all baby steps, day by day, week by week, month by month. And yeah, just to reiterate what Adriana has just said, I've only had this mindset for literally about a year. It's not like I've always gone to with this mindset, and I still sometimes struggle with it, but it's really changed my career just by having this mindset. Ironically, nothing to do with work or the job that I do. It's just the mindset, because you're capable of so much more than you think you can be capable of.
Yeah, so true. All right, and I really want to be mindful about the time and leave some time for questions. So, do we have anything? Do you maybe have any challenge for the people who are in the audience now, who are listening to Naomi? Maybe if they have any questions for Naomi or me, or any kind of like SEO maybe situation that you are having in your job and you would like to get any external, I would say, advice or anything?
I was just going to ask Naomi what her favorite part about being a manager is. It just sound like you're a really good manager, and
Oh, thanks.
it's just interesting.
My favorite part about being a manager, my favorite part actually is like teaching my team things and watching them come up with their own ideas, and then them being like the right ideas based on the foundations that I've taught. I never thought, if you'd asked me like 10 years ago, I don't think I'd ever wanted to be a manager, but it's really rewarding when you teach someone something and then the next time you're like, right, you go ahead and do that without any guidance. You've already kind of laid that foundation, and they come back and they absolutely smash it. It's my absolute favorite thing, because
Yeah.
you're paying your experience forward, but also fostering that support that a lot of people don't have, unfortunately. So that's my favorite bit.
Yeah, no, agreed. It sounds really good. And also, when you were talking about, leading by example, sometimes it's easier, I think, to give other people advice. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. I should do that. And it kind of just happens, doesn't it, like that?
Yeah, definitely. I do. It's quite good as well, because my team hold me accountable. They might not know it, but because I know I've given that advice, if I'm really aware if I'm not taking that advice, because I'm like, well, because we have like a big open office so everyone can see me. And so if I'm like, oh guys, take your lunch break, make sure you do all this, and then I'm in the corner just not doing any of that, I'm really aware of that. And so it makes me subconscious, like, no, Naomi, you have to like practice what you preach. So they don't know it, but they also help me like abide by my own rules.
Yeah. Do they help you to kind of like heal some of your like challenges?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first time, because the first time I managed someone was that guy that I was telling everyone about that didn't like me, basically. And so for a while I thought that I was just like a rubbish manager, even though my manager was like, no, you're fine. But we don't like to listen to other people, do we? We like to keep our own judgments about ourselves. But then the first time that I managed like people who liked me, and they were basically like, oh, thank you so much for this advice, like, and were just fine with what I've told them to do. That really helped me kind of heal that part of thinking, oh, like I'm a terrible manager. I thought, actually, maybe I'm an okay manager, because they've got no problem with what I've said and they're like happy about it. And so yeah, just every day where I get to interact with them and see that they're not like really unhappy with anything I'm doing helps like fill that hole of from years ago when I just thought, God, you're not cut out to be a manager, like this is terrible. It's not that. Some people just don't like you, but that's a them.
Some people don't like to be managed either, I think.
No, that's so true. Some people just doesn't, and it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. Some people I think just don't like authority, and that's okay for them. But I think if I'm gonna say anything, I'll just say, like, that's a them problem. That's not my problem that you don't like me, unless I'm a bad person, but I know I'm not. So that seems like something you need to sort out with yourself.
But you should know like what is actually good for you. If you don't want to be like in team and be managed or something like that, then work just independently, be consultant, and like that's totally fine. Like definitely it's better for even like that person helps to actually work in the way they want or like love or any kind of reason. But it's very important to actually know what you really want and what kind of like job you really enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. I always joke with Aaron, because he owns the agency that I work for. Like, I used to think before working there that I wanted my own company. Absolutely not. There is no way I would ever run my own business, because I just don't think I'd be cut out for it. But I've learned over time that I like to be in charge of a team and then lead that team forward, but I don't want to like be in charge of a business. But that's fine, because that's what works for me. But then for Aaron, he's perfect at it and he loves it and he's very entrepreneurial. I'm not entrepreneurial at all. Like, I know what I need to do with my strategies and my team, and that's it. But I'm not going to talk about like finance and like HR and recruitment and all of that kind of stuff. But you have to have different jobs to learn what you want out of your job. And then once you find that, it's like, that's the holy grail. But absolutely, if you don't like being managed, that's probably fine, but just don't work somewhere with a manager. Just go off on your own and do your own thing.
Yeah, the great thing is with you that actually you know what you want, and then you have that and you are enjoying it. But actually a lot of people, like, even they firstly they don't know what they want, and then maybe they are having the same, like they have what they want, but they are not aware of it, so they are just like unhappy for majority of reasons. Like, even if you would ask like them, like, hey, what kind of job would you like to have, they would say like basically the same job they have, but like they are not aware what they have, and they should enjoy in that kind of position. So it's interesting to see. Yeah,
people are interested. Like, going back to the manager thing, I didn't know that I ever wanted to be a manager. I didn't think I would be good at it. I didn't think I would enjoy it, and I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite parts of my job, but I had to become it and do it to realize that. But then vice versa. No, we've all had jobs or roles where you think, oh yeah, this is my dream job, and then you get it and you're like, oh, I actually don't like it. So it works both ways.
Yeah, and also in different stages, you I think you're looking for something differently. I remember when I first joined the company that I'm working now, I came from Bosnia, and so my English was disaster. Like, even like now, sometimes I'm feeling that I can express myself in the proper way, and especially like 3 years ago, I said, like, when my manager, when she asked me like, hey, what would you like to become? Like, are you seeing yourself as a manager? I was like, no, just like technical person. I don't want to communicate with the clients, like as much a communication like in English, that's better for me. And then I was basically, for 1 year, I was just like technical as specialist, just doing like technical things, all this, like all these things. And then when my English was a little bit better, then I was like, yeah, communicating with people, maybe I can have some clients and like actually engage more with the clients. And then, like, when you are practicing all these things, then you realize, yeah, like my true nature is actually to communicate with people, to actually lead them, to mentor them. So, and then like after a few years, I realized, yeah, definitely I want to be a manager. I can't see myself as a just like technical person, just like working all these. So yeah, in different stages, and like different external factors can definitely impact what you want in that time.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny. I was very similar. I'm pretty sure when I first started, like Erin was asking the same thing, like, what do you want to do, like, eventually? And because it was only just like the two of us, it was very much like growing with the agency. And I was like, I don't want to manage anybody. I was like, I don't really want to talk to clients, don't really do any of that stuff. And that's basically what my job is now. But I love it. But I think at that time I definitely didn't want to do that. But I think it's a confidence thing as well.
Yeah.
Because the reason why I didn't want to do those things was because I had absolutely no confidence I'd be good at it. But then it's like case studies for life. Once you've done it once and you're like, oh, it's all right, then you just like keep building on it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I was like no humans in my life, especially in English. Just like, if we can communicate in my language, that would be perfect. But like, she said, like, no, I don't know. All right. So, any questions for the for some of the last minutes, and I really want to be mindful for your time. So thank you so much for joining us. I really think that we talk about very valuable things here, so people can learn and actually take something from this and apply to their SEO careers and especially lives. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and have the rest of your night very well.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks so much. Thank